Muy buenas noches, aquí estamos nuevamente, aquí reportando sobre los resultados de la elección. Why am I speaking in Spanish? Here we are once again. I was going to do this in English, and I'm going to do this in English. Here we are once again, reporting on the results of the Mexican midterm elections. It's now 10:30 p.m. In Mexico and Central Time, 11:30 Eastern Time. And we have a much better idea than we did a couple of hours ago as to the results of the election. And Morena is looking very good, actually more than good. We're looking at a Morena landslide tonight in the Mexican midterm elections. With regards to the governorships, it looks like Morena will be holding 12 of the 15 governorships that were up tonight, many of them by large margins, and possibly even 13. And if we look at the federal Congress, Morena is set to not only hold its majority in Congress, but increase its majority. So let's take a look at the results very directly. I want to share my screen here so that we can see some of these results. And let's go to, first of all, the prep for federal Congress. And here we see that Morena is on, at the moment, 35% of the votes, with the PAN and the PRI far behind at 20 and 18% each. So that's the current state of play in the Congress. But if we look at what the results are projected to be, let me see if I can pull that up here. There it is. Morena is projected to win 40% of the seats in Congress, with its coalition partners, the Workers' Party pulling in 3% and the Green Party pulling in 4%. So that would be 47%, if we can see this. 47%, which would be actually more than Morena won in 2018. In 2018, it won 43.5% of the vote for the House of Deputies in Congress. So it's set to actually increase upon its margin in 2018. 47%, you'll say, is not a majority, but that's just the overall percentage. When you add up the individual seats won plus the proportional representation seats won, Morena will easily clear a majority in the House of Deputies and possibly and likely extend upon its victory, its majority that it had coming into this election. So that's where we are on that. If we look at governor's races, hold on a second here. I'm trying to get this up so that you can see it. If we look at governor's races, Morena is set to win, and we can see it here on the page of El Financiero if we're seeing it. Let's see here. Okay. So let's look again at the federal results that you might not have seen before. There it is again, the federal results. Morena stands to win 40% on its own of the seats in the House of Deputies, with its coalition partners, the Workers' Party, which is PT, at 3%, and the Green Party here at 4%. So that would be 47%. 47%, topping its 2018 result, which had AMLO at the top of the ticket of 43.5%. So that means that Morena is set to build upon its majority in the House of Deputies, and possibly even zero in on a 2/3 majority, which would allow it to pass constitutional reforms on its own. It would still need to get the approval of the Senate, where it doesn't have a 2/3 majority, but it would certainly free up Morena to do a lot more. Now, with regards to governorships, let's take a look here. Morena is winning, as it says here, in Sonora with its candidate Alfonso Durazo. It's winning in Chihuahua with Maru Campos. It's winning in Tlaxcala with Lorena Cuellar. Nuevo León, which is where Monterrey is located, is one of the states where it's looking to not win, with the candidates from the right-wing coalition PRI-PAN-PRD, Adriano de la Garza and Samuel Garcia from Movimiento Ciudadano, fighting that one out. Although it would be curious that if Samuel Garcia winds up being indicted, as he might be, that election could wind up being annulled in Nuevo León. So that's one to watch. Also, Morena is set to win in Zacatecas. It's set to win with David Monreal. It's set to win in Campeche, which is one of the hot seats with regards to electoral fraud and vote buying all throughout the day. Looks like that those efforts did not succeed in changing the tendency for Morena there. It looks set to win an overwhelming majority of the delegations in Mexico City. It looks set to win in Michoacan. And let me just give you the full list. Sinaloa, I think we already mentioned. So let me come back here. So the full list of governorships that Morena is set to win is Sonora, Baja California, Nayarit, Sinaloa, Baja California Sur, so both Baja Californias, Chihuahua, Michoacan, Colima, Tlaxcala, Campeche, Guerrero, and Zacatecas. And if you consider the case of San Luis Potosí, where Morena, for strange reasons there, basically endorsed the Green Party candidate, the Pollo Gallardo. The Green Party victory in San Luis is effectively another victory for Morena, so it could actually be 13 if you want to look at it that way. So that's what we're looking at right now. An increased Morena majority in Congress and 12 to 13 of the 15 governor's races. Let's just put that in perspective. Coming into tonight, Morena had only 6 governorships. Only 6 governorships. It will now govern 18 to 19 of the 32 states in the country. So Morena has had to, López Obrador, has had to negotiate with a largely hostile group of governors who have asked for more money from the federal government and more freedom how to spend it, and created these kind of coalitions of right-wing governors. That's been kind of a thorn in AMLO's side over the first 3 years. That panorama is going to be completely changed now. That panorama is totally changed. Instead of dealing with just 6 allied governors, he's now going to have 18 to 19 allied governors, which changes the panorama completely. Because governors in Mexican states have a lot of power, almost a feudal power that they exercise. And a lot of them have been using that to attempt to oppose the policies of López Obrador on vaccinations, on social programs, on security, and a number of other matters. So that now will be completely different. With regards to Congress, Morena and its partners also already had a majority in Congress, so it depends on if it will get to the 2/3 majority. But let's just reflect on this. We're coming out of a pandemic in 2020 where the Mexican economy fell 9%, right? Where AMLO has faced the unceasing hostility of 90% of the Mexican press and maybe 90% of the world press, dealing with the pandemic and everything else that he's had to deal with regards to opposition. Just think of the fact that all of the major parties in Mexico, the PRI, the PAN, and the PRD, ganged up against Morena, and even then have not been able to win. This is an extraordinary, extraordinary, extraordinary thing. Let's look at the result again that I just put up. Let's look at this again. 40% for Morena in the federal Congress, 3% for the Workers' Party, 4% for the Green Party. So that means the PAN on 20%, the historical right-wing party of Mexico, and the PRI, Mexico's former hegemonic party, and its little brother now in the PRD, which may, if parties don't hit the 3% threshold, they lose public financing. And they basically cease to exist as a national party. Basically, they go out of business, and they have to start all over again with a new name and go through all the hoops to become a party again. So we might be witnessing tonight the end of the PRD as a national party. Also, the Workers' Party on 3% is on the threshold as well as to whether it's going to maintain public financing or not. This doesn't threaten the coalition in any way because the Workers' Party's Congress people will still maintain their seats in Congress. But the Workers' Party would then cease to be a party at the national level in the next elections. So that's where we're at in that. This is an extraordinary thing. This is an extraordinary thing. Once upon a time, the PRI won alone, or it won by fraud, but it won alone. And with the PRI and the PAN together, there would be no doubt that it would win everything. Mexico has now changed so much in the last 3 years that the PRI and the PAN together, plus the PRD, cannot defeat Morena. That's a big deal. It's a big deal. And my question is, considering all the money funneled into the right-wing coalition from the Mexican Chamber of Commerce, from Gustavo de Hoyos, from Claudio X Gonzalez, who's been receiving money from the United States through USAID, where did all that money go? What did it do? Mexico is proving that you can't buy elections anymore. I suppose you still can, hopefully not. But that the idea of just funneling money into candidacies and physically trying to buy elections with debit cards or what you will doesn't work anymore. We've seen these videos throughout the last few days of citizens stopping attempts and foiling attempts to buy votes and foiling attempts to overturn precincts, calling in the National Guard or police to break up these situations. An active citizenry stopping these things at the root. It's, as I wrote in my recent article in Jacobin, it's a different country in 2021 than it was in 2018 or before. And not because the citizenry didn't want to stop these things before, but the organization wasn't yet there to be able to succeed at it. Brian Sanchez in the chat says they spent on an epic Twitter post. Yes, basically they did. Right? So my question now for The Economist, which ran 2 anti-AMLO articles in the last week and repeated them over and over again on their social media, or the New York Times, which has dumped on AMLO, or the Guardian, or sadly and surprisingly, The Nation in the last few days. What have you missed? What have you missed? And your virulent efforts to prove that AMLO is a disaster, The fourth transformation is a disaster. Everything has been wrong. How do you explain this landslide for Morena? Do you think they will analyze their coverage and maybe try to, you know, figure out what they didn't include, what they got wrong? Do you think there'll be a kind of a taking of stock? Or will they simply call AMLO a populist and say that he duped the public, that populists are good at tricking the public, and that the dumb, stupid Mexican public couldn't think for itself, voted for the Messiah, and that's why Moreno won? I think they're going to go that route because that absolves them from having to analyze and take stock of their awful coverage of the last 3 years. Their awful, awful coverage. Their awful, ideological, elitist, out of touch, classist, oftentimes racist coverage. And just poor journalism, above and beyond any labels. Just poor journalism. Now, I'm not saying that AMLO should not be criticized. He should be. Every day. That's what journalism is about. And Morena. And the entire movement. But what I am saying is that when you have an Anglophone press that uniformly has dumped on AMLO and the movement, calling it an utter disaster in every way, and then said utter disaster wins a landslide in the midterm elections, that you have given no information to your readers, no way for your readers to understand why this is at all possible, then maybe you should take stock of the reporting you've been doing. Right? The New York Times in 2017 ran a front page article praising Claudio X Gonzalez as this great, loved man of Mexico, when he is a loathed figure to large parts of Mexico because he's been trying to, with American financing, finance the opposition this entire time through his NGO Mexicanos en contra de la Corrupción. You think the New York Times might want to reconsider the fact that it had Claudio X Gonzalez on its front page in 2017 as this great hero of Mexico, when really he's reviled in large parts of the country as the person that's been trying to block in the courts every single thing that AMLO and his administration have tried to do? Do you think the New York Times is going to try to take stock of that and maybe change its reporting? Or The Economist, or the Financial Times, or any of them? I wouldn't blame any of its readers tonight for being totally taken aback by the fact that Morena is on course to win 12 to 13 out of 15 governorships and an increased majority in Congress. How do you explain that? Besides blaming the Mexican public. They give no backstory on the corruption that has gotten Mexico here, on American complicity in that corruption, on the fact that AMLO and his administration is attempting to dismantle a web of corruption on the same scale of Money Pulite in Italy or Lava Jato in Brazil. Never touched by the Anglophone press, never touched. Never touched upon is the possibility that perhaps the Mexican public has made a supremely logical and rational decision in having Moreno win by a landslide tonight. Just to think about that for a while. I'm not saying I'm the be-all and end-all of English language coverage on Mexico. There's a lot of great journalists down here. But the mainstream press has absolutely and totally dropped the ball on this. Absolutely and totally dropped the ball. And I sincerely doubt that they will have to have any kind of stock taking on this. Meanwhile, we'll be back a little bit later tonight, if I can, or certainly tomorrow morning, with an update on this. But where we are right now is Moreno wins 12 to 13 out of 15 governorships. So it will go from 6 governorships up to 18, an increased majority in the House of Deputies, 12 out of the 14 delegations in Mexico City, and it's winning majorities in state legislatures across the country. And I'll try to get you more information on that for the next video. So if you're a Morena fan, crack your beer, decork your mezcal or your tequila or whatever you've got. Tonight, is a Morena landslide. We'll be back a little bit later.